Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another live stream. Back to another live stream. Back
100 times?
to another live stream.
200 times?
Back.
500 times?
Who is Jose Arteaga?
Jose Arteaga is a YouTube content creator with several channels focusing on different themes.
I can't do it. We'll do it live. We'll do it live! Thing sucks!
His main channels include travel vlogs and lifestyle content. On his travel channel, Jose Arteaga Travels.
You ain't got the answers, man. You ain't got the answers.
Additionally, he runs a cooking channel and engages in other personal projects that highlight his diverse interests and expertise. Projects and expertise. Projects and expertise. Project, 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 expertise.
I am officially running for President of the United States. We need a leader. I will be the greatest jobs president that God ever created. It can be wonderful if you have smart people, but we have people that are stupid. The American dream is dead. But if I get elected president, I will bring it back bigger and better and stronger than ever before.
What's up, guys? How's it going? How you guys doing out there? Hope you guys are ready to rock and roll, have some fun. Talking about America. Well, talking about many things, as you guys already know, as we like to do here on the channel. I got my special hat on. We're ready to rock and roll. Hope you guys are excited, because I'm excited. You know, so let's just get the show started. I know we have a lot to talk about. I got my special hat on today. You know, hopefully, to see if we can get the, all these mixed signals. You know, they send when I make these videos. Sometimes when I go live, I get I get things, pew 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 shot over here, so that the video, the things that I'm saying don't really make it out all the way to the internet sphere. Maybe I'm thinking too much about this, but either way, it doesn't matter. We are here. We're ready to rock and roll. I see you guys are also ready to rock and roll and talk some shop. And what are we going to be talking about today? Well, you come on. You already know. You already know what's up. We're going to be talking about the state of things in today's, world, and where we're at today. So, as you guys already know, I got my little thumb up there. We got I just found this random picture. But again, there could be so many more people, added to this list. Are they on that special list? Why was that list released? Why was this news released, all of a sudden? What's going on with all that? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. As you guys already know, we like to really dissect and go a little bit deeper than usual into what's really going on. Because to me, I don't know, man. Something just smells a little fishy. And I know it's not me, because I literally just took a shower. So, there's something really fishy, with all this. It's not, really making any sense. And so, of course, you got to go a little deeper into the sauce to really see what the hell's going on. And, well, you guys already know. It's not always what it seems to be. Things are not always, as they presented, as they're presented to you in the news or on TV or whatever it is. And so, again, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Because, again, what are we talking about? Oh, I think a lot of you guys are thinking, oh, we're going to be talking about Epstein and the Epstein list and who's on it, who's not. No, I'm not going to talk about that. I think, there are enough channels out there already that talk about that. There's no need for me to keep, talking about that over and over again. I wonder if I can, I want to play something in here. Hold on a second. I guess I can't do this. I thought I could, because I thought I could have this playing in the background and just repeat over and over again, but whatever. I'll put this in the background. I'll have a little something in the background so you guys can enjoy, so we just, so you guys can see pictures of America, while we're talking about this and all that stuff. But yeah, anyway, so, what is going on? What do you think is going on? That's really the idea, because, like, okay, the whole Epstein fiasco, think about it. There was absolutely no reason for them to even bring this up or talk about it. I mean, we just saw, the previous administration, the Biden administration, they were sitting on this as well, and they didn't release anything. They didn't talk about it. They didn't do anything. So it's no surprise that, Trump would also not do that. But, there was ways to go about this. There's no real reason for them to, have brought it up the way they did, meaning that they kept, saying, oh, yeah, we got the list. Oh, we got the information. Oh, we're going to release it. We're going to show you what's going on. We're going to this, we're going to that. And then all of a sudden, they start gaslighting everybody into saying, hey, wait a minute. What list? What are you talking about? It's all fake. There's nothing to see here. Move it along. You guys why are we still talking about this guy? That whole thing. And so to me, it's like, well, wait a minute. Every time I see anything, okay, that's obviously a distraction, because this is a distraction. Basically every YouTube channel has been talking about this for weeks on end. Not just the YouTube, the media, the news, or whatever. So why are they distracting us? What is actually going on? What are they doing? Well, in my opinion, it's not my opinion, and and the reality of it, what is actually going on. Well, they're passing a bunch of bills. They're passing a bunch of things right now. In fact, one of the things that they just recently passed, and one of the things that they recently started pushing was the whole idea. It was a whole oh, sorry, a second. No, but was today's yeah, sorry, I was just getting a message. What's going on here? Okay. Yeah, sorry. I'll deal with that later. Anyways, but yeah, basically, the whole idea that they're trying to push, basically, we've talked about it before. The fact that we are ending a current monetary system, the dollar, the system that what we have at the moment, that thing is ending. That thing is moving on. It's already seen better days. And so now, they're trying to bridge us into a brand new world and brand new system. As you guys already know, even Elon has been talking about it for a long time. They want to create a they want to create a like a WeChat, a basically an application, that everybody would have on their phones, and out of the application you would be doing everything and anything, and so anything that you would do will be going through this one app, that is government controlled. And eventually, that's going to bring the whole social credit score, which a lot of people are, you guys already have it twisted. A lot of people are like, oh my God, that social credit score is coming to the USA and we got to stop it. Listen, guys, it's already here. I mean, the USA already has a social credit score. It's called credit, your credit score. Okay. And as you guys already know, depending on your credit score will depend on your social status. It's as simple as that. You know what I mean? So if you got like an 800 score, well, you're probably, able to get more things. Look, I've had, my credit score right now in the USA is probably like negative 300, so my credit's always been in the trash. But I remember back in, in the day, when I was living in Seattle and I was, making more money, well, I was able to get my credit back up. When I was still working in the kitchens and I was living in like a regular old Joe, barely making ends meet. I knew that back then that credit was something that I had to fix, that I had to make sure it was good. I had, my credit was ruined because as a young kid, as a young teenager, my parents, were having trouble making ends meet. My dad, fell ill, sick. Again, he passed away when I was 22. But with that said, again, I was dealing with that as a teenager, as a as a young adult. And with that said, dealing with that, it wasn't just dealing with that. It was the fact that like I had to, unfortunately, I had to sacrifice my credit. I had to sacrifice, myself in that sense, in order to provide for the family. So what did that mean? Well, we used to get loans, credit cards, all that stuff under my name, and basically, help pay the bills. Obviously, we were never able to pay off those things. And so it wasn't until like I was in my mid to late 20s, like 26, 27 or whatever, that I was able to finally, start getting these things off my record, start basically start cleaning my credit, going through some of those companies that help fix your credit. This is way back in the day, in the early 2000s. And so, yeah, long story short, like it was, my early life was pretty much ruined because I didn't have access to credit, like most people do. And so because of that, well, I had to deal with those consequences. And so eventually I was able to get my credit clean. I was able to start, fixing all that. I started making more money. And eventually, long story short, I was able to get to like a 700 something credit score. And my God, immediately, once your credit goes to a certain, number and you start making more money, you already know all these doors start to swing right open. And, life just starts to become, a little bit more bearable in a sense. And, that was just the reality of it, what I mean? So the whole, and that's just credit, what I mean? That was just back in the day. And so that credit score back in the day was only there to like help you with like loans and help you with like, just certain things. It wasn't like that big of a deal per se yet. But as the years have gone on, again, by the time I left the USA 7 years ago. Been living in Mexico since then. But up until then, one of the real reasons I wasn't really able to get an apartment. I wasn't able to rent anywhere in Los Angeles. It wasn't necessarily the money. The money, you can always get the money. You can go out there and work and make it happen. And sure, you might have trouble making ends meet, but you can always kind of make that happen per se. The thing is that it was a shock to me that, all of a sudden now, because I had been away out of the, I've been out of the system for a while. And then when I was trying to get back into the system, that all of a sudden, in order to like rent an apartment, in order to like basically do anything, now all of a sudden they're looking at credit checks, they're, checking, to see, all of these things in your past that have nothing to do with a rental. It's just the true reality of it. And I cannot imagine what it is today. You know what I mean? Like besides a background check, which is pretty obvious, that, a lot of people might have to go through in order to rent an apartment. But the fact that, you got to check your credit, check your job, check your this, check all this stuff, where, like in Mexico, it's not like that at all. It's just basically, look, this is how much you got to pay. This is how much is the deposit. This is how much of whatever. You got the money, you're good to go. That's it. You know what I mean? But in the USA, it's not like that at all. In the USA, it's like, you're already in that social credit score thing. And so the thing is, it's like, with that said, I remember, when I had a high credit score, when I used to like go get a plane ticket, it used to be cheaper. I used to be allowed to, have access to like certain lounges. I had access to not just like an American Express card, but, they gave me like the platinum American Express card, and I could go on and on and on. All these privileges, all this, again, the rich get richer. That's really a true story. And, I used to remember when I was poor, the whole idea was early on in the development of, the thing that what a lot of poor people used to complain about. They used to say, hey, yeah, I think, the radio waves are bouncing off my head here. So, just scratching my head there. Anyway, so what was I going to say? Man, what was I saying? Oh yeah. So as time went on, when I was poor, I realized very, very quickly that the poorer you are, the less access you have to credit, the more expensive life is. So, for example, early on in my 20s, my credit was so bad, that I could not even get a bank account. Okay. And back then, you were still able, I mean, I don't know how it is today, but back then, you were still able to get like a paycheck from your job. And I used to have to go with my homies, from the hood that I used to work with. And we used to have to go to the check cashing store. Because, if we were lucky, our employer, would have a bank like Bank of America or Wells Fargo. We should just, we could just go there, with like 13 forms of ID and all this other crap in order to, change the check, in order to get my money for, again, and it wasn't that, it wasn't just like, it wasn't as easy as when you just get the payday. And as soon as payday would come along, you just get direct deposited. No, we used to get like a paper check, and then we had to take that paper check to the bank, okay? Because in order to exchange it. So again, if we had an employer that had a bank that was local, or at least had a branch in the area, we used to just go to the bank, wait in line. Again, after work, after getting paid, after whatever, you had to go waste time to go to the bank and then get your cash. Okay. And then, in many cases, a lot of our employers had like a bank that had no branches anywhere nearby or no branches in the state. So we had no choice but to go to a check cashing store. And when you go to a check cashing store, I mean, they charge you like 10, 15, 20%. I don't know, some astronomical amount of money just to give you your money. And that was something they used to have to deal with all the time. And the reason we had to deal with that was because, well, we didn't have a check. I'm sorry, we didn't have a bank account. And this is like even before direct deposit days. So, we couldn't deposit the money into our bank account. We couldn't get a direct deposit. We couldn't get any of that stuff. And so we had to, do that. So that right off the bat, that's expense number one. All right. Plus, by the way, don't forget to please hit the likes, and all that stuff if you're enjoying the show. So not only did I have to deal with that, but then obviously everything else was more expensive in the sense of like, when you go to the store, you can only go to certain stores, that you can afford to go to. And, you would think that, oh, okay, I'm going to the corner store, or what is it like, my local, whatever, grocery store, thinking that things would be cheaper there. But it wasn't later on until I started making money and I had access to, going to the expensive Whole Foods or, whatever, all these other stores, that I realized, hey, wait a minute, it's actually cheaper, to get, food at these places as opposed to like shopping where I usually always shopped when I was poor. Um, a lot of you guys, not a lot of you guys, but a lot of Americans, unfortunately, live in areas where they're like food deserts. They don't even have a grocery store. You got to go to like the dollar store, and you got to go to all these other, places in order to just shop for your day to days. And a lot of times you can't even buy in bulk. Not necessarily because they didn't sell in bulk at the store. A lot of people have access to like Walmart. You can buy in bulk or whatever. You don't have to go to Costco or Sam's Club. But it wasn't that. It was just the fact that even if I wanted to buy, a month's supply, or sorry, not a month, sorry, even if I wanted to buy, like a big jug of, Tide, or any other, wash. I don't know, because I don't know. Sorry, Tide or all or whatever, any one of these liquids, to wash your clothes. I'm sorry, in Mexico they got different brands. I forgot what the brands are in the USA, but meaning that even if I wanted to buy in bulk, I could not afford to buy in bulk, because if I were to buy like a 3-month supply of dishwashing liquid for or whatever it is I'm buying, then all of a sudden I can't buy hot dogs to eat. So I would have to buy small amounts of liquids, to wash my clothes. I had to buy small amounts of whatever it is I'm buying. You know what I mean? Smaller amounts. And again, for most of you guys already know that that costs you a lot more. It costs you a lot more to buy something in travel size as opposed to buying a 6-month supply of the same product. And so obviously, when you have a little bit more, when you got credit, when you got certain access to certain things, well, you can buy in bulk and save more money. But when you're poor, you cannot buy in bulk. And so, anyways, I could go on and on. And so, like, long story short, it would be, it would cost you a lot more money to be poor. It really does cost a lot more money. And it really was not apparent to me until, like I said, once I moved to Seattle, I started making money and had access to, everything, like the people with money do. And I was like, oh, what the hell? Why is everything so much cheaper? And it gets to a point where, doesn't matter how much you really try to spend, you overspend. I'm going to buy, luxuries. I'm going to buy all this stuff. But it gets to a point where, there's like, how do I say this? Like a top, meaning that it doesn't matter how much you try to spend. You can't spend it all. You can't spend too much. So that's the thing too. It's like eventually you'll realize, hey, wait a minute. I mean, now I understand, like, wow, how the rich can get richer. Because like, again, it gets to a point where you realize, as you're purchasing your month to month, even when you have money, it's like, okay, well, I'm really only going to be spending $1,500 a month, no matter what. It's not really going to go over much lower than that. But when you're poor, all of a sudden it's like that fixed cost varies so much all the time. And because your amount that you're making every month or every week is so little that, and things change in price, and there's no, you can't buy things per se when they're on special. You only if you're lucky, you have to buy things as you need them. And sometimes you had to purchase something that you really needed and it was at the high price. And then by the time, it lowered in prices, that when you don't need it. And I could go on and on. It was just like always a struggle. I think a lot of you guys understand what I'm talking about here, because probably you guys dealing with that right now. Because now almost everybody's poor, but this is just back in the day when only a few people, or just a select group of the population was really dealing with this stuff. But I think at this point, I think a lot of people have really realized the fact that, how the whole system works, and for, a lot of people out there that have always been poor, it's a lot easier for them to be dealing with a lot of these situations going on right now, as opposed to people that have had, money or had some sort of, status or luxuries, access to things like that. And now as their money is worth less and everything keeps getting more expensive, now they are the new poor, and now they're experiencing being poor for the first time, and they don't really understand that. So there's a lot going on and a lot to unpack there. But the reality is that, what I'm trying to get at is that the whole idea of a social credit score has always been around. Because again, if you're going to cash your check at the check cashing store, your social credit score is on the ground. You're not going to be making any trips to on vacation, to another country anytime soon, let alone, get a passport, as opposed to the other way around. You know what I mean? When you're making more money, or you have more access to like time off, vacations, maybe, obviously you can not only get a passport, but even afford a trip. Nowadays, you want to take a vacation, you got to take a $10,000, $15,000 loan, in order to, afford to take a vacation. You can't even, afford to pay it out of pocket or even save that kind of money to do something like that. And so, the whole social credit score thing, it's not anything new. It's something that, has been, been introduced to our day-to-day American lives a long time ago. And now these days, it's just such an integrated part of your life that, basically, I mean, by the way, there are people out there like myself, that would be considered still too poor. We are still too poor to even get a bank account. And so, this is why, things like Cash App, and there's other applications out there, internet banks out there, that basically have allowed people to get a bank, to have a bank, so that they're not unbanked anymore. And so, now, again, if I were living in the USA, I would probably not go to a check cashing store, because I would have at least, like the Cash App, or I would have something like that where I can get my direct deposits, straight to that thing. But again, it's still not a bank, and I'm not really banked per se. And so obviously not having access to a bank, not having that access to banking also, makes life more difficult. Also, obviously, if you can't even get a bank account because your credit score is not high enough, you're not even allowed to participate like everybody else on the system. And so it makes it even more and more difficult, as opposed to, again, you have a little bit more money, you have your higher credit score, and so on and so forth. You probably have multiple bank accounts. You might even have a savings account, and so on and so forth, and credit cards and things like that, where you can, build, your credit. You can build, you can have more access to more things. Okay. And so, that's just like the reality of it. So like the whole idea now that, we're now, embarking on this new brave new world here or whatever, it's no surprise to me, and I think no surprise to a lot of people out there. But this is the reality of it. So like right now, like the whole Epstein thing, in my opinion, the reason that they've dropped that now, the reason they dropped the Epstein album right now at this moment in time is so that everyone's talking about it. That they haven't stopped talking about it. Trump doesn't stop talking about it. The whole thing is just nonstop. In fact, the whole meme is that, we're not going to stop talking about it. We're going to keep bringing it up, which is exactly what they want, because they don't want you questioning or looking at, what's really going on, with all these bills that they're passing, all these crypto bills, all these, bills that are talking about, stable coins. I know a lot of you guys don't know about cryptocurrencies too much or anything like that, but what is a stable coin? Basically what they're saying is that we're going to create a coin out of thin air, and then we're going to back that with the dollar, and I've talked about this endlessly, for years, that we were getting here, we were going to get to this point, and here we are, so, right now it seems like we are going to be making a smooth transition from the current US dollar to a brand new US dollar. And no, it is not going to be backed by gold or silver or anything like that. It's going to be backed by debt. It's going to be backed by more nothing. It's going to be backed by, Fugazi, whatever. So, I mean, that's kind of like where we're at right now. All right, let me read a few comments here. While we play Mr. Trump in the background. I love this song. This song's such a jam.
President of the United States,
we're so screwed. It's not even funny, bro. All right. Let me see. Lucy Q. Hey, shout out to you, brother. Yo, yo, yo. I think it's cool the Republicans are turning him over. No, hold on a second. My mouse. I think this. I just realized. I was like, why is the mouse not working? I was like, oh, I think this thing is causing interference. Anyways, my hat is causing interference here. Anyways, Lou says, I think it's cool that Republicans are turning against him over Epstein. It's good to see people not being a slave to their tribe. Yeah, but I mean, they're still slaves. Everyone, I mean, sure, they're turning against them, but are they really turning against the system? I mean, honestly, like, this is, look, right now what we need, I'm not pushing for this, okay? I know there's people listening out there. I'm not pushing for revolution or anything like that. I mean, you guys do whatever the hell you want. I'm out of there. I'm out of there. I'm living with my horse in a barn with my wife. You know, we're in a different country. I might as well be out in the middle of the jungle. I am in the middle of the jungle. Anyway, so like Kanye says, I'm not saying who, but anyways, no, but yeah, the point is that, look, at the end of the day, what we need is like a revolution. We need people to really fight back, push back, blah, 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 blah. And is that going to happen? I mean, honestly, I'm going to take a poll. Do you think, say yes or no. Do you think that we're going to have a revolution? Do you think that the people are going to get mad enough to really push back and demand a change by force? No, it's not going to happen. And the people in power know fully well it's not going to happen. Okay, we talked about this last week, because, the reason that's not going to happen is because everyone is a weak man. All we have right now in society are weak men, weak women, weak society. So nobody's pushing back on anything. As long as they got, as long as they can, they got their comfy couch, they can watch their, Monday Night Football, or WWF wrestling, whatever it is that they're, into. As long as they can smoke their weed, drink their alcohol, whatever. As long as you keep them comfortable, bread and circus. As long as you give them their bread and circus, why would they revolt? I'm going to tell you right now, the only way that the people are going to revolt or have a revolution is the minute that you take away their bread and their circus. And that is why they're not taking away the bread and circus. In fact, they're making the bread and circus better and better. In fact, hold on. I'll let Trump say it.
Can be wonderful if you and stronger.
That's right.
Than ever before.
They're making that bread and circus stronger than ever before. That's right. Bread and circus, baby. But that's it. That's the only way they can keep everybody, the way. So, right, for example, you saw RFK trying to get away from fluoride. And what do? They block that. So fluoride, they're going to put more fluoride in your water now. So. And he is, they're making America really great, again, by the way, a lot of people get that confused, he says, oh, we're going to be making America great again, right? Yeah, they are making America great again. Not for you. They're making America great again for other people. They're making America great, for their friends and their, and their cohorts, but not making America great for you. Don't get that twisted. Make sure you guys understand exactly what's going on there. But he's not lying to you. So there's no lies detected. I'll tell you that right now. Okay. So yeah, that's the reality of it. You know what I mean? Like, you already know these people that are in power, they're telling you at this point, they're not hiding anything. They're basically telling you everything in your face. It's all, I don't know how much more obvious it could be. And nobody's doing anything. Nobody's up in arms. Nobody's going to go and cause a revolution. You go to you see these protests that are happening over the immigration thing, and again, all that is bought and paid for by somebody. It's not. Yeah, no way, Jose. There's no revolution, none of that's coming. Everybody's gonna just keep taking it. Taking it and taking it and taking it and taking it and be like, please, can I have another, sir? Please, can I have another? That's all it is. Look, if it wasn't apparent to you already during the whole COVID thing, I don't know what to tell you. Look, let's not forget, guys, during the whole COVID situation, you remember when COVID happened, when that whole thing started, remember, when was COVID? COVID was in 2020. Who was president in 2020? Anyone? Bueller. Anyways, who was president. It was the same guy as president right now, Senor Trump, okay? And Senor Trump, had Operation Warp Speed. He's the one that started closing everything down. He's all, he did everything. Once Biden got into power, they just, kept on going with that. But, when everybody was blaming the Democrats or the left, for all this stuff, it's like, well, wait a minute. Are you kidding me right now? And right off the bat, so Trump they're all the same. It's two different, wings, the right wing and the left wing, but they all belong on the same bird. Okay. And so, that's kind of like where we're at right now. Like the whole thing, it started, again, if it wasn't apparent to you during COVID, and it wasn't apparent to you as time has gone on, as soon as Trump got reelected again, Again, look, before he got elected, it's like, oh, we're going to go after Bill Gates. We're going to go after Fauci. We're going to go after all these people. We're going to go pop, 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 pop. We're going to go after the tech oligarchs. We're going to go after all these fuckers, right? That's what Trump was saying, right? So what did he do immediately when he got into power? Oh, he brought in Bill Gates, so that he can help them out with the new vaccine for AIDS, or the new vaccine for cancer, the new vaccine for fucking, I don't know, whatever. For, hopefully they can come out with a vaccine with the fix retarded, because it's like everybody seems to be retarded these days. So, long story short, he brought in Bill Gates right off the bat, right now, this new president, this new administration, not only did he bring him back, but then, he brought in all these tech oligarchs, to basically, bring in the social credit score, to build in that the same infrastructure that China has for control, and so on and so forth. The thing is, a lot of people get it confused. Over there in China, they have social credit score, and it's all, you cannot function, you cannot move, you cannot do anything without your phone and the application and the credit score and all that stuff. Okay. But the reality is like, I've seen plenty of videos and plenty of people that live in China, and the thing is that, like, yeah, technically, you know what I mean? Like, if you got a bad social credit, if you got bad credit, what, all these things, yeah, you might not be able to travel, you might be able to do certain things and yada, yada, yada. But look, the reality is that most people don't move or travel much, okay? They just stay in their city, they stay in their area. It's, same as you, same as most people. And that's not really a big thing. So when you look at China's day-to-day life, the reality is that China is very similar to Mexico in the sense that, okay, why is it that the USA is so totalitarian, Cuba is so totalitarian, North Korea is so totalitarian, and China, Mexico, other countries are not? It's simply because of the enforcement that they got, the whole system of enforcement. So in China, they're feeding you all these lies that the government is really in total control of all the people. But the reality is, it's not like that at all. Because if you go to any of these cities or neighborhoods or towns or whatever, and you see how their day-to-day life is, it's all corrupt, just like Mexico, meaning that your laws and your rules and your regulation and your social credit score and all that crap is only as good as the people enforcing it. So in China, just like Mexico and many other countries, Latin America, for example, you can basically get away from the police or the authorities. First of all, you can just get away from them, like run away, literally run away. Okay. And on top of that, you can just pay them off. A lot of them are corrupt. Okay. And you can just pay them off. Okay, you can just, find ways in order to get away from that. But like in the USA, you already know that's not like that at all. Right now, in today's America, you know what I mean? They can find you like that. They can make you disappear, for all kinds of things. So imagine when they really, really roll out the whole social credit score, the whole social the whole the whole technology grid. They force you on that, digital grid. You're fucked, man. You're fucked, because you're not going to be able to get away from it, because the enforcement is so strong. The enforcement is so strong already. Okay, without any kind of digital anything. Imagine when they have the digital thing. Because look, I visited Cuba. One of the things about going to Cuba, it was kind of crazy, shocking to me, was the fact that they got basically no technology over there, compared to the rest of the world, right? And yet they were able to enforce everything, just through word of mouth, just through, people, spies, meaning, grandma was spying on blah, 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 just, community watch, everybody was enforcing everything, is what I'm saying. And so just like that, without the use of technology, cameras, any of that crap, they were able to have everyone living in fear. And look, for example, there's one thing that I'll never forget. I remember one time that we were on a rickshaw, like those guys that are, those guys that, you sit in that little thing in the back, and the guys on a bicycle kind of giving you a ride. Anyways, so we got on one of those things, okay? And basically, the Cuban guy, that was giving us a ride, around, the heart of the city. We were having a conversation. Cubans, I'm a Cuban, we talk a lot, so, we're having a conversation. We're just talking about whatever. And I remember, the part of the conversation was like, they were asking me, he's like, hey, what do you think about Cuba. You know, how do you like it? Blah blah blah. And you know, obviously, it's like, oh yeah, it's super cool, it's super awesome. But one of the things that is very shocking to me as an American was the fact that how similar Cuba was. Oh, we got Gizmo out there. You know, shout out to him. Look at him. Anyways, shout out to the Gizmo. Anyways, so yeah. Anyways, what was I saying? Yeah, the tuk-tuk, rickshaw, whatever it is. But it was a rickshaw because it was it was a bicycle. Anyways, what I was saying is, okay, so yeah, we was asking, hey, how how do you like Cuba, blah blah blah. And so I told him, yeah, to me, it's pretty cool. It's fucking awesome. You know, I get to visit, my parents' homeland. You know, where my blood is from. But one of the things that was shocking to me was the fact that how Cuba is so similar to the USA. And he's like, well, what do you mean? And I go, well, how tyrannical and how totalitarian everything is. That you're being watched by everybody. In order to even go exchange money as a tourist, you had to go through certain avenues and certain things, and it was so restrictive, and everything was just so. It was just like, I mean, come on, it was just, I mean, we were communist Cuba, it was like North Korea. It was pretty bad, right? But it's the same thing like in the USA, right? And on top of that, was the fact that like how strict the laws were, how strict the police were. For example, I was filming, I'm a tourist, I can film in Cuba, but a few times, there would be like police officers or military people, and I was filming, and they would be like, they would start coming at me like, hey, what are you doing? You can't be filming me. You can't be filming this. You can't be whatever. Yeah. And I was like, oh, like, yeah. So it was pretty scary. Okay, it was a little, kind of interesting in that sense. And so, I had to watch out, what I was filming, what I was saying. But anyways, as I was saying, so as as I'm telling him, it's like, hey man, this is, like how things are in the USA. And he's like, oh really? There's no way. How can communism and democracy be the same? You guys, in the USA, it's a free country, the democracy, the this, the that. And I'm like, bro, it's exactly the same as it is in Cuba right now. And we were just talking about communism, democracy, blah, blah, blah. And we're on the bicycle, and there's tons of people everywhere because it's Cuba. There's a lot of people on the street. And then literally someone overheard our conversation as we're zipping through on our bicycles, and I literally heard a lady, hey, be careful what you're telling those tourists. I hear what you're saying. Ba 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 ba. And all of a sudden, as soon as that lady said that, I could hear him, like, I could see him. He was like cowering. He was like, oh my God. Oh, he was like hiding, as he was running the bike, and he was all quiet all of a sudden. And, we were obviously talking, and he just didn't want to talk anymore. Like, no, hey, I don't want to talk about that. Hey, can we talk about something else? In fact, he started to talk to me. He's like, hey, you guys want to smoke weed? Whatever. Exactly. I mean, it's like, what? I didn't even know they had weed in Cuba. But the point was that he would rather talk about smoking weed, and which, by the way, was extremely highly illegal to do. He would rather do that as opposed to talking about democracy or communism, just saying those words. And by the way, he was just asking me, hey, what do you think about Cuba? And I was the one that was basically saying, yeah, this is, the USA is like communist. That's the one thing I took away from. It was there was no freedom like in the USA. And that was, again, that was another reminder when that Cuban lady, it was just some lady, basically overheard that, and she was just like, be careful what you're saying, be careful with whatever, basically just saying, hey, be careful because you're going to go to jail. We're going to tell on you, we're going to whatever. And so, and that's what it is in the USA these days. I mean, right now in the USA, you say anything negative about Israel, you're going to get a knock on your door. Hey, well, how dare you? How dare you talk about, our allies like that? So yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, it's like, it's not, bruh. So what the point I'm making is that in Cuba, with no technology, no nothing, look how they're able to enforce all these things, okay? So in the USA, okay, everything since COVID or whatever, you guys already know. In the USA, you already know they can enforce it because the people are going to enforce it. The police have all the rights, all the tools, all the everything to really enforce it. Okay, you don't have a constitutional right anymore for anything. You don't have any rights anymore. You just don't have anything. So not only do you not have any rights, okay, not only do you have a strong enforcement agency, but you also have a bunch of Karens, okay, that are more than happy to turn you in for free, let alone, if they're going to get like some sort of reward, for turning your dumb ass in. And that's where we're at right now. So, oh, thank you. I'm glad you enjoy my hat. Shout out to Validated Reefer. Shout out to you, brother. Lou CQ says, no way. They're too tribal to make a real change. But if the Epstein files got released, it would ruin the right and the left, which would revolution things for. Yeah, I mean, I don't think so. Even if, look, honestly, even if they release it, even if they release all the Epstein files and all that, that wouldn't change anything. I'm think about it. Think about it. Think about it. They release all that right now. What's that? How's that going to change anything? We already know. Everybody already knows. Everybody's a fucking pedophile and all this other crap. So how is it going to change anything? All the files are released. How is that going to change anything? Think about it. How is that going to change anything? Are the people really going to go out? I mean, look at the COVID thing. When everybody realized it was all fake, phony, false, they were lied to, whatever. Did it change anything? Did people demand the revolution or start going to the street? No, nothing happened. Nothing happened. Nothing's gonna happen again. Where it's a whole society full of weak men, weak individuals, weak everybody. And what do I mean by weak? Well, nobody, everyone's too comfortable to change anything. And so that's why bread and circus. We're going to go back to bread and circus. So again, even in Cuba, okay, in Cuba with no bread, no circus, and people are kept in line. Okay, so imagine again in the USA how, again, everyone's really going to get kept in line because, the bread and the circus, long story short, they're going to have to, Karen is going to call and make sure to turn you in because, the reason she's doing that is not because she cares about XYZ arbitrary law. No, a lot of it has to do with more of the fact that, like, hey, we got to turn this guy in because otherwise he's going to ruin the bread and the circus for all of us. That kind of shit. You know what I mean? So, like I said, if people are more than willing to, what is it like to bow down to the system when there's nothing to be gained, like I said, like in Cuba or North Korea, imagine in the USA where, I mean, there's a lot to be gained, by, kissing the boot and bowing down to the, your overlords, the people in power. It's as simple as that. So, I mean, by the way, this is, I made this hat. Maybe I should start selling these hats. I know there's people out there that sell aluminum hats. I literally just put some aluminum foil on my Dolphins hat, okay? It's to block out the how horrible the Dolphins are because they suck, all right? So anyways, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Bruh. See, this is why I spend so much time on this because, anyways, no, I'm actually, I'm a big sports guy. So I watch my Marlins, let's see if the Marlins can make it. I got to get a friend of mine to see if we can place a bet, on the Marlins. I think the Marlins are like 10,000 to 1 to make the World Series. Imagine that. Anyways, or 500 to 1. I don't know what it is, but got to get that going, right? So, what was I saying? But yeah, so like in the USA, I mean, that's a thing. And so right now, with everything going on, the whole Epstein thing, I think that's just another test on the plebes, to see if they're going to actually do anything or not. And they're not, just like COVID, just like all this other shit, they're not. They're just not. And at this point, with everything we know, with everything we've seen, with all the access to information we have, with everything, I mean, and nobody's doing nothing, I mean, at all. Everybody's just trying to spread everything. Everyone's just trying to spread their own, their own narrative, their own agenda, and all this other stuff. And no one's really, trying to, make anything better for anybody or anything. Oh, hold on a second. I'm gonna let kids go out here. Yeah, sorry. What? Sorry about that, guys. So I mean, yeah, and so that's the way I see it. So like right now, what are they doing? What is the actual government doing as the whole Epstein fiasco is going? You already know, the big beautiful bill, but all these other bills. Look, I don't know because I don't really pay attention to any of that crap anymore. Because I don't live there, thank God. But like all these bills, right now recently, because I watch other financial channels and things like that, and they were talking about the digital asset bill, the digital asset this, what are all these things that I have already been talking about and predicted? And like, oh, wow, they're making it a real thing. But anyways, as I was saying, so as Trump, got into power this time around, second term, he brought in Bill Gates, to help him, get the ass cancer cure. He brought in, all the tech oligarchs, again, You remember, people like Zuckerberg and who else? All these nerds. They used to be, very anti-conservative, and then all of a sudden, the last 6 months, you see like Zuckerberg out there and all these other guys. They're turning into bros. They're turning into, like whatever, man. Conservative bros. Like the Joe Rogans of the world. And it's like, bro, come on, man. And anyways, and he's bringing in all these, right now, again, whether Elon is working with him or not, again, they're all working together. There's one big party and you ain't part of it. And, but again, they brought in Peter Thiel. They brought in, again, the PayPal mafia. They brought in, a bunch of these people, the Palantir, all that stuff that's getting, I mean, come on. And nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about the fact that, now, they not only have they given these corporations, these tech oligarchs, the complete power of all the people, but the whole thing of the information, all that stuff with the Palantir, what's going on, that's basically setting the foundation and the groundwork for the social credit score and the social credit app and the system that basically, you're not going to be able to function in the USA without it. So you better be a good little boy and a good little girl, or you're going to be, paying for it. Even if you are a good little boy and a good little girl, you know what I mean? You're going to be, they're definitely going to be going after you, okay? They're keeping tabs on you and making, keeping you in line with fear and keeping you in line, with consequences, and so on and so forth for not following orders. Okay, so there's no more freedom in the USA. There's no more. China is actually more democratic and free, believe it or not. Not democratic. China's not democratic at all. There's nothing democratic. But I mean, China's a lot more free than the USA. It's as simple as that. Because even the USA being all democratic and shit. I mean, again, does your vote really count? I mean, do you really want to have that conversation? Give me a break, right? So, and again, this guy, he ran on, what was it? What was the platform that Trump ran on? All right, let's let him say it, okay? Since he's better at it.
For President of the United States, we need a leader. President of the United States is dead. We have people that are stupid. The American dream is dead. But if I get elected president, I will bring it back bigger and better and stronger than ever before. The American dream
is dead. But anyways, at the end of the day, he ran on making America great again.
will make America great again.
But it's not make America great again anymore. It's not. You know that.
And we will
Make Israel great again.
great again.
Right?
We will make
Israel.
America great again.
Like, what the hell, man? So, and that's where we're at, man. I mean, that's where we're at. And it's like, and people still don't understand, they still don't get it. I mean, man, I mean, look, it's so crazy, man, because it's like, again, if you really read some history and you really kind of see what's going on, it's kind of nuts. You know what I mean? All this was beyond predicted already. And it is kind of insane to see, basically the fact that the whole, the empire, the American empire, the strongest, most powerful freaking empire, is run by Israel. Is run by an entity, another entity out there, and we are doing their bidding. And what is their bidding? You know what I mean? What is it that they want us to do? What is it that we're actually doing out there? So, I mean, I'm telling you, man, right now it's like things are not going well, and most people, again, they're not doing anything about it. You know what I mean? Like right now, you know what I mean? Like you would think that the people would be up in arms, over, the Israel thing. They're not. You know, you'd think they would be up in arms over the Epstein thing. They're not. You'd think they would be up in arms that he brought in Bill Gates again. They're not. You think that they would be up in arms with, you know, the whole tech oligarchs and Palantir and blah, 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 blah. They're not. You know, they're not, and they're not, and they're not, you know, and then that's it. That's it. And that's it. You know what I mean? Everyone is either complacent and just dealing with it, and that's it, or, you know, they're still supporting it. You know, there's a lot of MAGA people still out there. You know what I mean? It's just fucking insane. And same as the orange man bad crowd. You know what I mean? It's like, no, what you think another president would have been better? You think Kamala Harris would have been better? You think, I mean, come on, what's wrong with you people? So it is pretty nuts. So Validator Reefer says, did you see how much Nvidia has gone up? Yeah. So and all the tech stocks, you know, they're gone up. It's funny because remember, you know, because of the tariffs and all this other crap, you know, we had a bunch of stocks really, you know, hit rock bottom, you know, not rock bottom, but, you know, a lot of stocks, you know, a lot of tech stocks, you know, all the tech stocks, you know, hit the ground. And they've already made a V-shaped recovery. In fact, the V-shaped recovery is actually faster and a lot. The V-shaped recovery this time was deeper and faster than during COVID. Yeah, but you remember during COVID when everything just tanked and then a V-shaped recovery, you know, we recovered all the way, you know, and then some, you know, come on, we're making all-time highs all the time. Guess what? Same thing happened, only faster. Give me a break, you know? And so it's like all manipulated. It's all fake. It's all phony and false. And, you know, most people just refuse to like wake up. You know, most people, they're just not going to do anything about it. And so, look, this is why I spend so much time talking to you guys, you know, trying to let you guys know, hey, there are options. You know, you can get out of there. You know, you can find other, you know, solutions that don't include, you know, you having to stay there and keep taking it up the ass, you know, keep, you know, taking the abuse, you know, and so on and so forth. And as each day goes on, it's going to be more and more difficult for you to leave, for you to get out of there, for you to separate yourselves, you know, from all the insanity. And that's it. You know, it's going to come a day, it's going to come, you know, a day really soon where you're not going to be able to leave the USA no matter what, under any circumstance. So just be aware of that. So, you know, again, you know, hopefully you guys can get out of there, you know, before the shit hits the fan. I know a lot of you guys, you know, might want to stick to your guns and you guys want to stay in the USA and like, you know, see how it all plays out. But look, the reality is that, you know, it's not going to end well. You know, if you guys just, again, pick up a history book, it's not going to end well, okay? Like, for example, look at Cuba. You know, that again, this is why I'm actually glad, you know, that was where my, you know, my parents were born and where my background is from, because, you know, I got like direct, you know, knowledge of what communism is, how it comes into power, and how quickly, you know, you lose your rights to even leave communism, okay? So, yeah, I mean, it's not going to end well. And you know, again, most people are just not, everyone's asleep. You know, most people are just asleep, you know, and as long as you got their, as long as they have access to their bread and their circus, they're good to go. But at this point, it's like, I mean, we're only like, what, 6 months in, you know, 6 months into, or 7 months into Trump's presidency. And it's insane the amount of damage he's done. You know, when it comes to all the things that I just mentioned. But on top of that, you know, he's doing even more things that he promised he was never going to do. So again, right now, you know, he's you know, helping Ukraine. You know, I thought he hated Zelensky. I thought him and Putin were friends, you know, and all that shit. So now, you know, he's going, you know, after, you know, now he's you know, what is it, like helping Ukraine as much as possible so they can keep bombing, you know, so they can attack Russia. On top of that, you know, he is supporting Israel, you know, in every facet that he can. Again, Israel, what has Israel done? Israel, I think like I think someone said this stat. Please correct me if I'm wrong, okay? But there was a stat that I saw recently where basically Israel has attacked like 9 countries in the last 11 months or something like that. Yeah, 9/11, right? No, but anyway, some crazy thing like that, you know, where they've attacked 9 different countries unprovoked in like the last year or so, which is kind of nuts. You know, right now he's out, you know, Israel's out there bombing Syria, which is kind of nuts because, again, the whole Syria war, we've talked about that. You know, that was just a proxy war between Russia and the USA. The USA won that war. So basically, the USA put someone that was on the top of the terrorist list right? The top of the terrorist Hamas list or whatever the hell it is. I don't know. Anyway, but the top of the FBI terrorist list, that's the guy that's running the CIA. That's the guy that's running the Syria right now. And, you know, Trump has already been, oh, he's a good guy, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so Syria is basically a colony or basically part of the USA at the moment. You know, we have a lot of influence there. And Israel's bombing them. And so it's not just that they're bombing Iran and bombing all kinds of, you know, Palestine and doing all that shit. But, you know, again, you know, he's bombing Syria, bombing, you know, all kinds of people in the area. And it's just like, I mean, what the fuck is going on here? You know, how many videos do we need to see of Netanyahu talking about the past, you know, talking about, you know, I mean, talking in the past, you know, like 10, 20, 15 years ago about, yeah, we need, you know, we are here to destroy the USA. The USA is a vassal for us. USA is, you know, basically, you know, we're going to destroy them, but we're going to be using them, you know, to, you know, do our bidding. And, you know, he's been saying that for fucking forever. And, you know, here we are, and we're still, you know what I mean? Like, everyone's still like, you know? So I don't even know what to say. So, like, yeah, no, I mean, it's not going to end well, you know? I don't want the American empire to crumble and fall, but I mean, at this point, it's like, it's the most obvious, inevitable ending to the movie here. And who knows what could happen? You know, who knows what the future holds or whatever, but you know, like I said, you know, it's like if I was a betting man, which I am, you know, we anyways, I mean, if I was betting on this, I mean, come on, you know what I mean? Like, it's the outcome is not outcome is not good. I mean, shaking the 8-ball, it's not looking good. All right, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So. Lucy Q says, a la verga, I was just thinking about putting money in NVIDIA. Listen, guys, it's still not too late. You know, right now, all these tech stocks are going to keep pumping. The cryptocurrency is going to pump. You know, all this shit's going to pump. You know, that's all part of the bread and circus. You know, that's how they're going to keep you distracted. You know, like, look, think about it. Right now with the Epstein thing, you know, the Epstein thing's going to be around for a little bit. But imagine now, in the next few months, in the next month or two, everyone starts really making money on cryptocurrency, on NVIDIA, on whatever the fuck, you know, GameStop. No one's going to care. No one's going to care about fucking Epstein. No one's going to give a fuck about any of that shit. All they're gonna care about is about their fat bags, you know, and their Dogecoin, their Bitcoin, you know, their Pulse chain, you know, whatever the fuck they're into, you know what I mean? Ethereum, you know, like, that's it. You know, that's it. You know what I mean? That's all they care about. You know, so and you know, the NFL team, you know, I want to make sure my football team wins the championship, you know, go Cleveland Browns, you know, whatever. It's just terrible, man. You know, or watching Netflix or watching this or watching whatever. And it's like, I mean, at this point, it's like, how many documentaries do we need to see, you know, on Epstein, on JFK, on the government, on this, on that, and yet people are not. You know, again, like right now, you know, how MAGA is acting is the same way that the left was acting and vice versa. And it's just like, you know, the people that are behind MAGA, what are they doing? They're censoring people. They're going after people. They're delusional, you know, with what they think is really going on. And it is just incredible to see that it all play out. And, you know, to me, again, I'm just watching the fireworks from very far away. You know, I'm out here and living in Mexico, thank God. You know what I mean? And I don't have to really deal with any of that shit. I can just sit here and talk about it from far away and not really, you know, worry too much about it because, well, I'm not, you know, I'm not connected to it anymore, thank God. You know, I'm connected in the sense of like, yeah, I live in this country and, you know, Mexico and the USA are together. You know, Mexico also has, you know, their, you know, Jewish president and their, you know, Trump is also a Jewish president. I know he's not, but, you know, he was declared by some Jew guy, you know, as the first Jewish president. But, you know, Mexico has a Jewish president, you know, and, you know, they're like 99.9% Catholic, you know. But like what I'm saying is like, you know, shit's going down. Shit's going down. It's not looking pretty. And, you know, at the very least out here, you know, like just like other countries around the world, they're not as heavily invested, you know, into all this stuff as the USA is. And, you know, when you go to Europe, when you go to Canada, you know, other places that are considered first world, I mean, you guys are all fucked. You know, anyone in Europe is fucked. Anyone in Canada has like already been fucked. You guys have already been beyond fucked. At least in the USA, it's not that bad per se in some aspects, but you know, you're about to lose everything, you know, and that's it. and to me, I don't know what the future holds, but it's not gonna be pretty. I mean, it's already not pretty. It just keeps getting uglier and uglier as each day goes on, and again, we never know. We haven't been. We're not at war with China yet. We're not at war with Russia yet. We're not at a. But it's all happening. You can already see the writing on the wall. Again, when Trump is supporting Ukraine, and then he wants Ukraine to bomb Moscow, bomb Russia. We're already at war with them. Everything going on with China. Again, Iran supports China. Okay, we support Israel. So right there's a proxy war, going on with all that shit too. And I mean, things are just starting to really heat up. Again, we've talked about that more in detail in other episodes, about the World War III and what's going on with all that shit and what to be expecting going forward. But yeah, it's not looking good. All we can say for sure is that more turmoil is coming, more death and destruction is coming our way, and yeah, it's not. We're not. Building back better. We're not making America great again. We're not. A lot of people. Like for example. I talked about that in another episode. Trump has been, the whole thing with Trump, right? And his administration is that, oh, they're going to be bringing back manufacturing back to the USA. Well, I agree with that. I think that they are. But a lot of people get that confused with jobs. A lot of people think it's like, okay, we're going to bring manufacturing back, but does that mean that we're going to have, jobs to go along with those all those factories coming back? No, because all this manufacturing, all this infrastructure that we're building back is not for you. It's for the fucking robots. The robots are going to be working the factories. The robots are the ones going to be doing all this stuff. We're basically, in a sense, almost going to be building an infrastructure for the robots. Yeah, that's right. The humans. Yeah, that's right. And the humans are just going to be, casualties. That's it. You know what I mean? Just like anything else. Just like always. You know what I mean? We're just the means to an end. What is the end? I don't fucking know. I don't really know what the lizard people are really up to, but it's not looking good. I'll tell you that. So, Lucy Q goes, if I got any further from the U.S., I would start to come back around and get closer. What? If I got any, what? I don't even know what that means. Anyways, I'm sorry, Luz. I got a little confused with what you're saying there, but anyways. But yeah, at the end of the day, oh, I got you. Okay, I know what you're saying. Okay, you're so far away from the USA right now that if you just move in any direction, you would just get closer to the USA. You're literally at the furthest point away from the USA. Got it. And it's still not far enough. No, I mean, I agree with you. So Elon's building those rockets for us, all right? So we can get the fuck out of here. So, but yeah, man, I mean, I'm telling you, things are not what they seem. And, we've only seen, we haven't seen anything yet. We're only at the very beginning stages of all this insanity. And like I said, week to week, things just get crazier and crazier and crazier. So, again, sorry I didn't talk about the Epstein list or the Epstein clients or anything like that. But to me, I think it's like, we're all being played. That's all part of the show. It's all part of the bread and the circus, again, because look, Hollywood has lost its luster. You remember back when we were growing up, it used to be all the Hollywood gossip shit. But, nobody cares about Hollywood gossip anymore these days. But what they do care about is political gossip. The Hollywood gossip has been replaced by political gossip, and that's basically where we're at. Nobody gives a fuck, what Tom Cruise is doing these days, but they sure care about, what Kamala Harris is doing. Whatever. Anyway, so. Yeah, Spain is really going crazy. All of Europe is going fucking crazy, man. The whole thing is falling apart. And you talk to a lot of they interview a lot of the immigrants, the ones that are taking over Europe right now, and they're all saying exactly, what you'd think they'd be saying. Yeah, we're here to take over Europe. We're here to, basically destroy Europe and take over Europe. So, and that's happening in many parts of the world. So, I mean, yeah. Anyways, I could go on and on and on talking about this, but it's time for me to head out of here. It's been a long enough day for me. I'm getting tired. I've been a little bit under the weather the last few days, and I got to get some rest. I got a lot of shit to do, and I'm getting really, really tired and not feeling so well. So I gotta get the hell out of here. But anyways, I want to really say thank you to all of you guys, and appreciate all of you guys, for hanging out with me today. Thank you so much for, again, all the super chats, all the donations, all the love you guys have been giving me the last few weeks, last month or so, ever since, my other channel has been demonetized and all that stuff. But again, shout out to all of you guys. I really appreciate you guys. Love you guys so much. You guys are so amazing. Make me so happy that I get to hang out with you guys and talk all these things. And again, we're not that alone. And I think at this point, most of us, we know we're not that alone. We know that again, it's like, that's the thing. It's like we know all this stuff is like watching an accident. You cannot look away and you can't do anything about it. All you can do is just hope and pray that you're salvaged, that you are spared. So again, if you guys have any sense or you have the ability to get out of there, get out of there, okay? Because again, things are just going to keep getting worse and worse. And before you know it, one day you'll wake up and you're going to see another 9/11, and that's it, man. That's it. It's over. At that point, you're fucked. So just FYI, all right? Don't say that Uncle Jose and Uncle Lambo didn't warn you, okay? I've been warning you guys for fucking years, all right? Like, 8 years now, all right? And counting, all right? So with that said, all right, guys, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Thanks you again for all the love and support. You already know the deal. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to please like, please subscribe, please share, please hit the bell icon. But more importantly than anything else, please stay awesome. Don't forget, I also upload these videos, these uploads to Spotify. All the links are down below, so you guys can listen to me at your leisure, at your pleasure, and all that good stuff. And that's it. I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Time for me to get out of here. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys here next Thursday. Same bat time, same bat channel. Love you guys, and see you later. Bye.
America great again. And we will make America great again. And we will make America great again.
live stream. Back to another live stream. Back
100 times?
to another live stream. Back,
200
back,
times?
back, back,
500 times?
Probably. Who is Jose Arteaga?
Jose Arteaga is a YouTube content creator with several channels focusing on different themes.
I can't do it. We'll do it live. We'll do it live. Thing sucks.
His main channels include travel vlogs and lifestyle content. On his travel channel, Jose Arteaga Travels.
You ain't got the answers, man. You ain't got the answers.
Additionally, he runs a cooking channel and engages in other personal projects that highlight his diverse interests and expertise. Projects and expertise. Projects and expertise. Projects, project, projects, project, projects, project, projects, project, 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 project.